Views expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, we do encourage you to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the Sue-Ellensanders Show, heard each week at this time with Sue-Ellensanders.
Welcome to the Sue-Ellensanders Show. We're glad you're here, and you're going to get a special treat this evening as you're listening, because you're used to listening to talk radio, and there's not a lot of music other than maybe the music leading into one show or another, or leading into the sports. But today we have a virtuoso. We have a classical artist whose name is Michael Amante, and he's with us in the studio. And we also have with us Bob Perry, and he's president of the organization Voices for Children of Okeechobee and the Treasure Coast. And you may wonder, well, what do these two gentlemen have in common? And I will tell you that Michael is going to be performing at a concert in Port St. Lucie at Tradition on Friday, November 9th. That's a week from tonight. And there's still just a few tickets left. There's not a lot of tickets left. And some of the proceeds are going to benefit Voices for Children. So Bob is here. He's going to talk about Voices for Children and what type of organization it is. And Michael, he brought a number of different CDs with him, 5 different CDs, but you said you have a total of 13.
I'm working on number 14 now.
14. Yeah. So you've been performing for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. I've been performing since the age of 6 years old. I started singing for the Good Sisters of St. Anne's in Syracuse, New York, and then moved on to bigger and better things in New York City.
Let me just ask you this.
Sure.
Who was the first person who noticed that you had talent beyond the norm and enthusiasm?
I'd have to say that was Sister Helen. When I was in school, I forget what grade I was in, and I had to be, 6 years old. And I'd been singing around the house because my father sang around the house, so it was very natural. And when they were looking for a young boy to sing the role of Oliver, they couldn't find one who wasn't embarrassed. And I just got up and stood on the chair and said, I can sing this. And, they were like, we have our Oliver. We're excited, So it really was from that beginning. I went on to sing for the Pope and presidents and Pavarotti.
Did you have any idea that you were good before someone else told you? Or did you just think you were going around singing around the house?
I never understood the power of singing live for people until people got excited about it, other than my family.
Yeah. And it must been really thrilling for you at 6 years old. Our Oliver, I remember when my son was doing high school drama, they cast I think he was like 3rd or 4th grader in the role of Oliver when they did Oliver. And it's a very difficult role.
It's really, the notes are really high. You have to be a natural boy soprano, and I was.
And are you not anymore, right?
Well,
you can still hit those notes.
I'm what's called a first tenor, but I also sing well into other ranges that are higher. I can actually sing to a high F above high C, which is miles away from a high C.
Do we have to watch the glass in the room?
No, actually, there are some sopranos who actually sing an octave above that. Then you got to be careful of the glassware. Yeah. But it's a big sound. It's penetrating.
So that's not a fallacy? That can really happen?
Oh, it can definitely happen, surely.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Everybody learns something new every day. I thought it was just like an old wives'
tale
or something.
No, they can actually do that. Some people can do it.
So the concert itself is coming up, as I said, Friday, a week from tonight, November 9th, and you do have tickets that are for sale, and the some of the proceeds are going to benefit Voices for Children. So, Bob, I'm just going to ask you to just give us a little bit of an overview on what Voices for Children is and what you're going to do with all the money that Michael's going to raise by singing for his supper.
Well, this Voices for Children is a nonprofit, and we have one mission, and that is to financially support the Guardian Ad Litem program for Florida's 19th Judicial Circuit. It's a state agency, and as such, people who want to support it cannot give money to it, and that's why each of the 20 judicial circuits has its own nonprofit. So we're Voices for Children, and the money that we raise actually goes to a couple of things. One is to go out into the community, help the program recruit volunteer advocates for these kids so they can be a voice for them in court, in the school, sometimes in the community, and make sure that their best interests are represented. That's number one. The other is, life happens to these kids just as it happens to our own children, and when they're in foster care and sometimes living under challenging circumstances, things that we take for granted, they can't take for granted because our norm is not necessarily their norm. So we have the opportunity to raise money for what we call normalcy needs. And they're anything from a class field trip to a summer camp to athletic fees, music lessons, sometimes tutoring that the school can't provide, those kinds of things. And they just ease sort of the experience that the kids are having in foster care because they've all come from either abuse, neglect, or abandonment.
And how do the Guardian Ad Litem program, how do they target the children? How do they know what they need? And
yes, okay. When the child enters the dependency system, the judge will assign a guardian ad litem, and assuming one is available, and we're a little underrepresented right now, so that's why we do the things that we do. And that child is going to be represented by a volunteer advocate, and they're going to get to know, at least on an every 30-day basis, and usually more often, what that child's needs are, and they can be all over the place. They make a recommendation to the Guardian Ad Litem program because it's a team setup where the advocate will work with the case manager and also with the best interest attorney. Mm-hmm. And together they decide this is where the opportunity is for this child, and we need to fill it. And so that's what they do. It's really terrific stuff.
So the concert that's coming up on November 9th is going to benefit Voices for Children. And,
yes.
And Michael, why, this is not the first time you've done any type of benefit concert. Sure. You do them frequently. Why did you select this of all charities?
Well, I was a crisis intervention counselor for socially maladjusted and emotionally handicapped children in Syracuse for the Syracuse School District, and I did that for 10 years. So it was something that was, I found needful. And again, it's something that was very natural for me to go into to support an organization that helps children, and especially underprivileged children or children with issues or have been abused, because that's all I dealt with for every day for 10 years.
So when you look for opportunities to perform and give your talent back to the community, you look for things that involve giving back to children.
Yeah, I mean, there is no shortage of need out there.
I know.
I just came back from the panhandle of Florida, where the devastation from Hurricane Michael is just so widespread, and so to be in that it's really overwhelming that people have lost their lives, their homes, their businesses, their livelihood. So there's no shortage of need. But I try to do as much as I can, but the ones that really kind of sticking close to my heart are the ones that involve children.
And there are so many aspects of a child's life that, as Bob Perry described, can differ from normalcy.
Sure.
And it might be an event like a hurricane that disturbs the normalcy of the family life. And right now, the schools are out of session, or some of them are coming back into session after being because of the hurricane. And it's easy to put yourself in a situation where, it could by the grace of God, it could have been you.
Sure, and you don't always need a hurricane, because I had a child who came to the school and said, it's cold in the house, and we did a home visit, and the mother's boyfriend had come to the house and broke every single window in the house because he was angry, and it was, in the middle of wintertime in Syracuse, New York. It gets below zero sometimes.
My gosh.
And this is what some of these children face. They are facing horrible living conditions, some of them, and just incredible, terrible abuse.
I think one of the worst parts, too, with children especially, is a lot of times they don't know that there is any other normal except for what, is like the kid who came in and said it's cold in the house.
Right.
He didn't say, hey, all the windows in the house are broken, because that was, I guess, something that wasn't that unusual to him.
Surely.
And that's a scary thought when you think about that something so awful is normal to them.
Right.
And so whatever we can do to make life better. So, Michael, let's go back to you and let's talk about it. So 45 years you've been performing.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you've seen...
A little more than that.
A little more than that? Okay.
I just did the math. I'm going to be 56 on Friday, so
no,
50 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, 50 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty easy. Even I could do that. So for 50 years... What happened next after Oliver? I mean, you don't have to go year by year, but just in general.
That's going to be a
long
show.
Yeah, no. I mean,
well, there were certainly highlights and milestones. I was doing a lot of singing in Central New York, and actually started singing at various churches. Gospel music is something that I really love, and I got involved in a music program at a church where the music director over there was a concert baritone for an opera company in Pennsylvania, and he was a pretty big deal. And after he heard my voice, this is when I'm a young guy, he said, you really should consider singing opera. And my father listened to it for many years, but I didn't really think about doing it myself until he lent me an album of a singer by the name of Jussi Björling. He was a big opera singer at the Metropolitan Opera in the 1950s. And he had such a haunting quality to his voice. I said, this is a great way to get in good with girls. To sing Italian and sing this beautiful music.
Time? Teenage?
I'm 19, I'm 19, 20, turning 20.
Absolutely. A crooner is the way to go.
And I heard this song from Donizetti's L'Elixir d'Amore called Una furtiva lagrima. And it goes, Una furtiva lagrima. And it has such...
that's right.
I'll probably swallow it. But it has such a haunting quality. I was like, it was so full of angst and pain. I was like, this is beautiful music.
Yeah, and the girls thought so too,
they
I
did.
guess.
And they still do.
So you went on to travel the world.
I did. I actually finished my undergraduate in Italy, and then through some bizarre sets of circumstances, wound up inside the Vatican singing for the Pope for supper. One afternoon, I was invited by a guy that was on the street, who I had gotten into a little argument, because a national pastime in Italy is argument. You can't pay full price for anything. You have to argue about things. And this guy turned out to be the chorus master to La Chiesa di Sant'Anna, which is a small church inside of Vatican City. There's the Basilica, where a lot of people go to church, but then where the priests go, it's a little church called La Chiesa di Sant'Anna. And he invited me to go there, and I wound up singing for the priests of La Chiesa di Sant'Anna, and then he invited me for an audience with the Pope. And
so which Pope was it?
John Paul II.
Okay.
And of course, I called my very, very Catholic father. My father is so Catholic. My middle name is actually Guilt. I called him and told him I was going in to sing for the Pope. And he and I kind of butt heads when I was growing up, because little did I know, I didn't know that he always wanted to be an entertainer. I didn't know that until I was like 35.
That's why he was singing around the house to begin with.
But we always kind of clashed a little bit. I was out when I was 14, 15 singing in, rock bands when I should have been home doing homework. But he was very happy that I was invited to sing for the Pope.
So you can sing rock, you can sing
everything.
Opera.
Yeah, Broadway. So lots of Broadway shows. Yeah.
And I'm looking at some of the CDs, and you have 13 working on 14 CDs, and people can get them anywhere. And hopefully, you'll have some available.
Yeah,
at
I'll
the
bring
concert.
some. I should. I'm trying to get this. It's a Broadway album, completely Broadway. Things that I love from Broadway. I was in West Side Story. I played Tony, so there's a couple tunes from West Side. I did a lot of work on Phantom. I did some singing with a tour of Les Mis. So there's a lot. And I played one of the leads in Chess. So there's a lot of that music on there.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Were you ever in Les Mis?
I did a concert version of Les Mis. I didn't do the stage stage production, but I sing Jean Valjean all the time.
Yeah, I'll bet. My son, who's 25, started a theater company here on the Treasure Coast when he was about 19 to do. It was just a 3-year stint because he wanted to do things like Putnam County Spelling Bee and Avenue Q and things that weren't being performed on the Treasure Coast.
Right.
So instead of just getting it done, he decided to do it himself, which is totally a 19-year-old thing to do. And he had the same attitude you did, that this would be a chick magnet. So,
right, it is.
And it was. So
that's the only reason to do anything.
Yeah. But anyhow, long story short, he's now 25, and he's made the segue from theater to politics, which is actually not a very long stretch anymore. But he'll go to political events and he'll sing.
Oh,
and Les Mis is one of his favorites. And because of his involvement over the years and the friends that he's brought home, I have a greater love for not just Broadway, but musical theater. And Next to Normal was one of the shows that they did that they brought to Stewart, and I didn't understand that a musical could be not funny.
Sure.
And here I got to be a grown-up without understanding that.
Well, I mean, that was an extension of opera, and most of operas are tragedies. They're not comedies. They all usually end with at least the tenor or the soprano dying, so those are the good operas.
At the very least. So would you say, so you started in rock, then you did opera, then you've done shows, Broadway shows, and you've even done Christmas music.
Surely, absolutely.
So what is your favorite to perform?
I can't say that I have a favorite, because music is so supportive of my moods. When I'm in particular moods, I may sing. If I'm in a down mood, I might sing something very difficult to sing from an opera, something that's tragic, something that brings that out. If I'm really happy, I may be singing gospel. If I'm involved in a female company, I might sing some beautiful love song from Broadway. And then I do a lot of 80s AOR radio type of rock, like Journey, Foreigner, Survivor.
I love Journey,
yes. I do all that
We're
stuff.
close to the same generation.
Lying beside you. So I sing all those beautiful love songs from the 80s.
Well, you brought these great CDs, but since we have you yourself in the studio, I wondered if you would sing a snippet of something for us.
Yeah, I certainly could sing.
Your choice.
Something off the back, way off the
microphone.
Well,
you just did. I mean, you just... Yeah, Cliff's agreed.
Yeah, I understand. I've been doing this. I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, he knows how to do it.
Well, I am for the concert. I'm going to sing a variety of things. I'm going to sing some Broadway things and some pop stuff. Some things like old Sinatra songs that most of this community will probably be aware of. And then, of course, I'm going to sing some classical Italian things. And most of that would be things you probably heard, like O Sole Mio, or Torna Soriento, Nessun Dorma from Torrendo. But there's a song that I really love singing from called Rondini al Nido. And it's called a Neapolitan song. It was written by Neapolitans back when all those other songs were written.
And we're not talking ice cream.
No, not at all.
The other kind of Neapolitan,
the one that's in Italy. It comes in 3 flavors, though.
Yeah.
And this song was recorded by myself and Luciano Pavarotti, and I've never heard anybody else do it. But it's a really gorgeous song, and it speaks of every summer the swallows leave the nest, and they always come back to re-nest with their siblings and their young ones, and only love makes you wait forever. And it is very true to the heart, and it's sung with a great amount of passione, we say in Italian. So that I can sing a little bit of that for you if you like.
Okay. All right.
Sotto la gronda della torre antica, una rondine amica, allo spazio del mondo e l'è tornata. Ritorna tutti gli anni, sempre ad essa data, monti e mare e sa varca per tornare solo amore, quando fuggeva lontano, speri invano e non torni più, speri invano e non torni più.
Awesome. Yay.
It's just that easy. You open your mouth and beautiful things come
Yeah.
out.
So when you're like hanging out around the house, your whole vocal career began singing around the house.
Surely.
So I'm assuming that you still go around the house singing.
Of course.
So what's your favorite stuff to sing around the house?
What I do a lot around the house when I'm cooking, I love to cook.
Yes.
I was a part of a PBS special that did a cooking segment, and then I had a cooking show in Nashville. And I actually have some recipes published in Pasta Magazine. So cooking is a big part of my life. So whenever I'm in the kitchen, if I'm cutting up vegetables or I have my hands in the water, what I usually do is I'll put on an opera, and I have some operas that I have just the orchestral accompaniments to, so that my part is taken out, but all the other voices are in there, so I can sing duets and things like that. So typically I'll put on Madama Butterfly, or I'll put on L'Elixir d'Amore, or Lucia di l'Amor, or La Bohème, which I did. So all of those roles, I can sing through the whole role while I'm cooking.
One of the CDs that you shared with me had a baby on it, and it's called Humbled. And it's a photograph of you with your son.
Right.
You told me that it was when he was 4 months old.
He's 4 months there. Look at the back. He's all over that album. He's a great looking kid.
And he's now 14.
Yeah, he won't sit on my lap anymore.
And does he go around the house singing too?
Well, actually, he is a musician. He's playing saxophone for the Vero Beach Marching Band. He in high school. He loves it. He's been playing sax a long time, and I have two daughters, both of which sing. My oldest one is in the drama class over there at Vero Beach High School, and my youngest is playing what is that called? That instrument she's playing, an oboe. She plays for the band,
which is similar to a clarinet, only it's a wind instrument.
It's a woodwind.
Yeah. I played clarinet when I was in middle school. Yeah,
good for you.
But, then it wasn't cool to be a band nerd, so I quit.
Right.
But people go through a lot of different stages in their life, and now you're a family guy. You got the three kids.
Yeah, but they're getting older now, so they don't really need me around other than for a ride. In 2011, late in 2011, their mother, my spouse, died of 11 years. We were married for 11 years. She died very unexpectedly, so they were kind of circling the drain emotionally. So I had been down in Florida a lot to do concerts, and a friend of mine had a variety of townhouses. He goes, "Why don't you just rent one of my houses?" So that's where we've been since 2013, and I still get back to see my father in Syracuse. I just did a show up in Syracuse. He's a World War II veteran he did 90 almost 100 combat missions in a P-38 Lightning, and he's 94 now.
Wow.
So yeah, he's just amazing. So I do whatever I can to support the vets. I did a record called Amante Salutes America, and that was all for benefiting the wounded veterans, people who have amputations. We try to buy them bicycles to ride in and prostheses and those kinds of things. So that's really important.
So your dad is still in Syracuse?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
Crazy. I had him down here shortly before my mother passed away in 2016, and I just couldn't get him to move back and stay. So
no,
he just likes it up
because
there, I
everybody
guess.
else in New York is coming to Florida.
I know. That's
yeah,
great.
he knows that, right?
Oh yeah, a lot of New Yorkers are down here, but he's kind of set up there.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
happy.
we're so lucky that we got you here on the Treasure Coast. And Bob, I know you're counting your lucky stars that you have this star.
Well, I mean, think about this. And, some of the accomplishments Michael's already alluded to, but he's sung the lead in West Side Story and Jesus Christ Superstar, Grease, and several others. He's sung for 4 presidents as well as the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
This is a man whose talent is rare in the Treasure Coast, and to come here and have this concert to benefit our children, this close to home, and in a really nice, intimate setting. I don't know if you're familiar with Traditions Town Hall.
I am. Yes, it's
But
a lovely setting, and it's got great acoustics as well.
Yes, and there is not a bad seat in the house. We, giving space considerations, we have to limit it, to
Because the fire marshal says you do.
Well, yeah, and which is unfortunate because I think
Yeah.
we're very close to selling out and expect to fully. And if we had standing room only opportunities, we would fully take advantage of them.
And they turned me down when I wanted the Peter Pan trapeze, to go out all the audience. They said no to that.
But it sounds like at the level of your voice that if you get closed out of this concert, that you can probably stand outside Tradition Town Hall and still hear you.
Right. Well, if
After
you
we
walk
sell
by my
out.
house, you can hear it every day.
That would be really interesting to be one of your neighbors and hear that kind of music.
Well, when I first went to New York City, I actually came directly from my finishing my studies in Italy. So I came to a little tiny apartment, a basement apartment in New York, in Queens. And this tiny little studio, it had a toilet and a sink. That was it. And I was doing a lot of auditioning, a lot of operatic roles that I was taking in New York. And when I moved out of there, the landlord came and said goodbye to me with his whole family and said, "We're really sorry to see you go." And he said, "We used to, when we heard you start an opera, because I would sing from start to finish.
Yeah.
You have to sing the whole thing." He said we would get out chairs and just listen to the whole opera. I was like, "Well, don't you owe me some money?"
That's hysterical. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was nice to be wanted, and people feel
It's
sorry when you
great.
leave rather than otherwise.
The concert next Friday night, you said, and the part you sang for us was Italian and opera, but you're going to do a variety of music on
Yes,
Friday
yeah.
night.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, what's you do pop stuff like Journey and
Yeah, but I probably won't do too much of that kind of thing. More like the pop things I would do would be like, there's a couple of old love songs by Sinatra that I really love. There are, things like "More Than the Greatest Love the World Has Known." That kind of things. Really kind of, sweet love songs.
Yes.
I was singing, I was opening up for Don Rickles at the Stardust in Las Vegas, and I didn't know him, and usually they want you to get off very quickly. And I finished my set, and he goes, "Hey kid, go back there and do more." So I sang more, and it turned out that was his anniversary song, and his wife was there, and they were smooching and hugging each other while I was singing. It was
Aw,
great.
that's really sweet. I'm sure you bring a lot of romance to people's
Oh, yeah,
lives,
yeah.
and what with the internet, you can just play things, as you need, and your background as you need. So when you're going around the house singing, you've got your background, and you're. We've already talked about the fact that, at 19 you realized that, this was a good way to woo the ladies.
Oh, absolutely.
And you did. You
Yeah.
wooed your wife. Was there a particular type of music that really
Well,
closed the deal for you?
When I met the mother of my kids, she was with another guy, and it didn't take very long after singing to get her away from him. So, and actually, I'm married to a beautiful girl from Trinidad, and we met online, and I greeted her at the airport in Trinidad, and I said, "Don't even turn around, just stay with your back towards the airport." And I came up and put my arms around her, and I sang one of her favorite songs by Shania Twain. It's called From This Moment Life Has Begun. From this moment you are the one, right beside you. It's where I belong from this moment on. And that was kind of the sealed the deal right there.
Yeah, so she didn't say anything about a
Well,
return ticket after
no,
that.
she didn't say too much. She wasn't resisting.
No. So, as far as your talent, you said that, your dad had one day wanted to be a performer, so you obviously got some talent from him.
Yeah.
How did you develop the talent? Did you have a lot of mentors along the way?
Yeah, my mother was actually an artist. She was from California, was an illustrator for Disney, and drew Donald Duck, I guess, every day for about 9,000 times. So I have both. I'm also a visual artist. I take pictures. I'm a graphic designer. I am an illustrator. So I got that influence was just very saturated in my upbringing. So I looked for people to get involved with, musicians or artists, and you find along the way you find some great mentors, and Luciano Pavarotti was one of mine.
That
After
is
meeting
very
him,
cool.
it was scary the first time. It was like Luke Skywalker meeting Darth Vader for the first time. Very scary. But he was a sweet man, really, really sweetheart.
So other than the music and the performing, what are the other things that you're into? Obviously, Star Wars.
Well, not so much Star Wars,
Yeah.
but I really love to illustrate. I love air shows because my father, being a pilot, we had a small airplane growing up, a little Beechcraft, and we used to go to a lot of air shows. And I take my son out to. There's a wonderful air show in Vero Beach every other year or so. There's one coming up in Stewart this weekend that I'm going to go to. So that's one of my topics. I love animals and airplanes, airplanes, and architecture. Those three things I really love to shoot.
So let's talk about the concert on Friday night. There's just a few tickets left, like a couple rows of tickets left.
Yeah, get them.
So I am not kidding when I say if you want a ticket, you really need to get on the telephone or on the internet. Bob's, how can people buy tickets for the show?
Yeah, really, my advice would be, and this is going to be one of those situations, given where we are, where the race goes to the swift, I wouldn't waste any time. I would call this number. It's 772, of course, 233-2442, and that will lead you to Carol Ritz. Carol will be more than happy to accommodate you and find a way to get the tickets to you, even if necessary, to pick them up at the will call window at the concert. And by the way, Michael, among the many things that he's not going to say about himself, he's been uncommonly gracious. And one of the ways that that's been manifested is in the ticket price. This concert is not going to be substantially different from what someone would pay, I don't even know what, for Carnegie Hall, which he has sold out. But it's only $30 per person here.
Yeah, Carnegie's $100 and something per ticket.
There you go. So it's $30, and it's an accommodation to the nonprofit and to the folks of the area, because he is a local resident. And we're just thrilled that he has decided to grace us with this opportunity.
I live here, but I'm not local.
Do you still travel?
Oh, gosh,
quite
yeah.
a lot? Yeah, that's what
I'm going to, I have 3 concerts in Reykjavik, Iceland in December. So I get around.
Ooh,
Yeah, fun.
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Still bring a jacket.
Yeah. That was going to be my other question. Do you miss the winters of Syracuse?
No.
But obviously not
No,
if
I
you're
hate it.
flying to Iceland.
I was up in the Panhandle a few days ago helping with hurricane relief, and it was 55. I was like, oh, it's a little chilly here, But no, I don't even like to see snow on television. I change the channel if I see snow.
So what was your favorite venue that you ever performed at?
Carnegie Hall, for sure.
Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I've
classic.
done-
Did you get the chills?
You
The
don't-
first time?
You don't really get the chills. You get excited about being there, And they have 3 theaters, and I've performed in all 3 of them. And the big one is just, there's history right there. You feel all of that when you're in there. And certainly being a musician, singing from that stage with very little amplification, it is marvelous. It's amazing how that place is put together.
So if people were listening, whether you have young kids in your life who are into music and into singing, or whether you're getting ready to retire or you are retired but you've always wanted to do it, what is your advice to somebody who wants to get into performing?
Wants to sing?
Yeah.
I think just singing is a very natural thing. It's like breathing. It's the instrument that God made. So it's something that you should do every day. I really can't sing in the shower anymore because it's too loud, but I know a lot of people do. And singing is just it's very natural. If you want to pursue singing, that's a different story. Then you really got to think about the business of singing and get a good, a really good teacher, because what I hear inside my head is very different from what people are hearing, because I'm removed from it. You're removed from it. So the room and the ambience of other things around really takes a lot changes the voice a little bit. So it's good to have a good teacher to listen to. But for as far as anybody wanting to sing, just do it. Open your mouth.
The other thing that I have to say, after years of, I like to sing. I love to sing. I'm not very good at it, but I can carry a tune. And when karaoke came in, man, I killed it, But singing makes you feel good.
Oh, it does.
I just don't think that there is any way that you can sing and then not walk away from that song feeling good.
Sure.
But by the same token, listening to other people sing also makes
especially
you feel
the
good.
live voice. I mean, the live music is so important, and you don't get a lot of that, a lot of quality live music. It's necessary. It is vitally necessary to any human being to go out and see musicians who are playing live.
So Michael Amante is my guest, and he's been talking about the concert that is going to be going on at Tradition Town Hall next Friday night. Just a few tickets available for that, and it will benefit Voices for Children. Bob Perry's been here talking about Voices for Children. Michael, if people miss this concert, they can still buy your CDs.
Oh, sure.
And you can look on Amazon. It's Amante, Amante, and we'll have that information for you.
You hire me, I'll come over and cook and sing for you.
So it's a combination. So when is the next time that you might be performing locally if people miss the show on Friday night?
Well, I'm the next weekend after this show. I'm in Boston for a few days doing a big concert, and then I'm back in the 25th of November. I'm at the Boca Black House in Boca
Okay,
Raton.
so you're going to have to go all the way to Boca if you don't make it here. Michael Amante has been my guest, and he is an American virtuoso, a performer. He's sung for us here today. Also, Bob Perry, who is president of Voices for Children. As we're leaving out, you can go ahead and get rid of your music, Cliff, because I got somebody who could sing something else for us. What do we got? A couple seconds? Why don't you take us out, Michael?
All right. I gave you my music, made your song take wing, and now how you've betrayed me, denied me and betrayed me. He was bound to love you when he heard you sing.
Awesome.
That's from the Phantom of the Opera.
Great. Thank you for joining me. We're here every week. We'll see you next week with more.